Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports as ordered. And preview season continues tonight. We got the NFC South. But in addition to that, there's some disgruntled players in the NFC East that we got to talk about. You know who they are. We're going to talk about it, figure it out. Where should they go? Who should be interested? All the good things, right? Because I got with me the world-renowned, the world-famous, the cool, calm, and collected.
Always.
Born in Texas, raised in VA, representing everything New Jerusalem. He wants you to know that if it wasn't for Brereton, New Jersey, World War I would still be going on.
You're welcome.
And then to make matters even worse, they turned the site that this thing was signed by President Harding into a damn Burger King. But anyway, he is Mr. Logical.
You don't even eat that here.
Don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it. Feelings are for soap operas, not fact fights, baby.
There is I down here in the Alamo, your unorthodox statistician going left so much you thought I was southpaw. I do believe in Joe Henry. Tell Manny Pacquiao to duck just one more time. I am 2-5. Like, review, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things with the liquid death in your hand.
Trying out the mountain water today.
Yeah, I got my cherry obituaries. You know, it's my favorite one besides the blueberry buzzsaw, but I can't find it around here.
I normally don't like sparkling water, but I'll give it a shot.
Yeah. So, like I said, you know what I'm saying? We got some trade requests going on. So, yesterday, you know, Washington Commander wide receiver Terry McLaurin said, I want out. You ain't giving me money. So there were reports that came out. And of course, you know, you take the reports with a grain of salt. But there were reports that came out saying that Washington was looking to offer him in the neighborhood of $33 million. Then the other report said he want more than that. So I was thinking about it because I was like, hey, Brandon Ayuk got 34. I believe CD got 34. Justin Jefferson got 35, and then Chase, I believe, ended up with 40. You know, so it was one of those things where it was like, first of all, where do you think you fit on this scale?
Correct.
That's number one.
Self-awareness.
Yeah. Number two, this is not one of those next man up situations that we always talk about with the quarterbacks. Like, oh, hey, that got paid. What's Brock Purdy going to get? This wasn't that. This is you a year early trying to get an extension or whatever. So right now, Terry McLaurin is making about $23 million. Like, it's a 3-year, $68 million contract. And he said, show me the money or I'm out of here. So he's asked for a trade request. Mr. Logical, what's your reaction?
Well, at $23 million, he's 18th in the league for this coming season. Devontae Adams getting 22, but I think he got a big front end on his deal, and he's been like getting that mercenary deal since he's been moved for a couple of teams. I think because they have a quarterback that they believe is more of the catalyst than the wide receiver, it kind of ruins his leverage a little bit. If we talk about Jamar Chase numbers are crazy. Justin Jefferson numbers were crazy. But T. Higgins' argument is you guys don't have much else in the form of like success. You got Joe, you got Jamar. You need me there to take pressure off of him because you didn't spend any money anywhere else. You don't have a new coaching staff. You don't have a new philosophy. You don't have a new ownership. Like you're in a position where you don't have the leverage or like the freedom to like not have me here. Whereas in Washington, they have this level of optimism with 5 thinking that he can make it work because he's special. And I think Terry's kind of locked into this spot where it's like, no, I'm out here running these routes. I'm getting in these spots where it's like, yeah, he's also making plays with his feet. He's hitting the tight ends. He's getting these other young guys involved. So I think it kind of ruins his leverage. And this $34 million for these wide receivers is tough because you can't get him the ball $34 million worth of the time. Like they're getting doubled. You can't throw it every play. You can't throw it to them every play. So it's just if you're a coordinator, if you're a team, it's like, I don't know if you are not necessarily worth as far as like value as a teammate, but just analytically, we don't have $34 million worth of responsibility for you. So I'm saying this was like, we can't, like, if it was guys out here getting 2,000 yards receiving and other guys are getting 700, like the difference between like Saquon and Gainwell, I get it, but I can get a couple of wide receivers on rotation and get them all 400 to 500 yards versus one guy getting 1,500. See what I'm saying? So like, I think that's the piece that wide receivers are going to lose this argument. I think that's where he's losing his.
Yeah, that's this is the disadvantage of being a black quarterback. Because when you go back through, the game, if you will, you look at somebody like Donovan McNabb. Like he wasn't necessarily a runner in the same way, but he had the ability to run. And you look at his receiving core over the years, besides the 1 year he had TO. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, like people call Donovan McNabb a choker, say he didn't get the job done. And he didn't have weapons in the receiving. Like, Westbrook was a good running back, but they didn't have receivers, So then you go back to, you always say that I hate on him, but I'm going to give him some Michael Vick. Michael Vick, right? Like he was throwing to Mike Jenkins and Peerless Price for a minute. Not that they're like bums, but they weren't top of the league. Like, what's the word? Commiserate of his talent.
I think like what you're saying is that because they can cover up offensive holes and they're getting paid, like Lamar Jackson, his first year started, he threw 36 touchdowns. So they were like, oh, we got a guy who's young and raw. They could throw 36 touchdowns. All right, for the next 4 drafts, we're going to get the best available defensive player or the best lineman and put him out there. And then we'll see if we give him enough time with his, all his dynamic attributes. Can he find somebody open? Whereas like Tom Brady's like, nah, I'm going to Tampa Bay. They got Godwin and Mike Evans. And I'm just going to throw the ball 600 times this year and see what happens. And that's the difference. But with McLaurin, I don't know how the wide receiver group as a unit. I know the running backs talked about having some kind of solidarity when, a couple years ago, and they had all these Zoom calls.
Well, you see how long that lasted.
It didn't last long. And then this guy started getting paid. But I mean, he had to run for like, a lot of yards to get this money. I think Terry McLaurin is just really trying to get ahead of it, get his contract, because if Jake comes out to have like another dynamic year and it's similar to last year where it wasn't a Matt and Julio kind of relationship where it's like Julio had 1,600, 1,700 yards because he's making Matt look good. McLaurin's probably not going to get those opportunities because, 8 times Jaden might just take off and run. So you call 32 dropbacks. He only throws the ball 24 times. You're not getting 12 targets out of that 20. So it's like his targets are going to be limited. And then, sometimes the NFL is keeping a beam. Victor Cruz talked about it. They'll call plays where you're not the number one read.
Right.
No matter what your talent is, they look at, their salary cap and they understand how it goes and they'll hold you out and they'll kind of freeze you out. If they offered him $33 million and he didn't take it, that I would believe that's a little foolish. So I don't believe they offered him $33 million. I think the report comes out to make it seem like he's being greedy.
Right.
But
and I was having a conversation with somebody earlier, and they made the comment of they need to pay him to show him how they value him. And I disagree with that because I want to keep, for the record, I want to keep Terry McLaurin. But just for the basis of logic, as I look at this, it's like, okay, I could pay this guy 34 million, 35 million, whatever that number may be. By the end of that contract, he's going to be 33 or 34. So not saying that that's old by any means, but I mean, it's 33 or 34. And I don't know what the likelihood is that I'm going to keep you after that. So I got Jaden on a rookie contract. And if we go back to Russell Wilson, we remember he won the Super Bowl on his rookie contract, got paid, and then never again. So I'm looking at this like I want to maximize this Super Bowl window. You made the NFC Championship game last year. Obviously, it's not a given to get back there, but just going off of that nugget right there, we're right here.
Eckler holds onto the ball. That's a better game too. Like if he doesn't fumble that ball, I think they're going down.
Killed all the momentum.
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint,
his leverage piece is off. Yeah,
you can use the draft to get a receiver. I'm not telling you to go in the draft and find the next Micah Parsons, who we'll get to in a second. I'm not telling you to go find the next Darrelle Revis or anything like that. We're talking about a wide receiver here. You know what I mean? And you could supplement that with a better running game because Brian Robinson is in a contract year this year. So you got decisions that you have to
even
make
if you decide to give Brian Robinson a contract after this year, it'll be 30% of whatever.
Yes, but you remember my Clippers comment? You remember my Clippers comment from the other day? Saying we're paying Von Miller. We're going to have to replace him, obviously. Bobby Wagner's another year older. Got to replace him. Still trying to build the secondary. Jonathan Allen is a malcontent.
Those are positions where you can go young because it's I'm not saying it's not a thinking position, but you can tailor your whole entire defensive scheme around having young guys. You need a wide receiver. We're going to talk about it throughout a lot of these previews.
And that's why they shouldn't have brought in Debo.
Maybe they brought in Debo because they figured that with Jaden being a runner, they could change the offense, be a little bit more dynamic, get him on the edge, or get the ball to Debo out of the backfield. I personally think having more threats down the field is better than less. We're going to talk about the Patriots here when we go at NFC, AFC East previews. So I don't talk about when I talk about Atlanta, like you need weapons. It's just that I think some people have to follow what, from Ocean's 11, they say, what's the first rule of poker? Leave your emotions at the door. First rule of negotiation, leave your emotion at the door. Fuck how you feel. Like if they offer you a contract and it's too low, don't take it as disrespect, because the least disrespectful thing in the world is for someone to offer you $28 million. I don't think that's disrespect.
Okay.
So I think you got to use the right words. You got to get yourself in the right frame rate. It's like, okay, if you're only going to give me $28 million, guarantee the whole thing. So I'll do the Kirk, like think about it. Kirk Cousins. Did you ever hear about Kirk Cousins having a public dispute with his team over contract?
You usually don't with the white players, and I'm not saying that's why, but you usually don't.
No, just in general, you never hear about whatever his contract is because he always took the best deal and he made it sweet for the other team. Like, cool, don't pay me $32 million a year, just pay me 28 and guarantee a whole thing for 3 years. Then after 2 years, you do well, they need to renegotiate it. Because Washington had him on the hook a couple years for the franchise tag.
But to your point, guess who else is in a contract year? Debo Samuel.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're not going to keep both.
You can't lose both.
I would rather have the guy that's already been there and keep the new guy on the 1-year rental versus you lose Terry McLaurin and some trade discussion over the next day and a half. Now Debo has a regular ass year, 900 yards receiving, 6 or 7 touchdowns. He misses 2 or 3 games with his shoulder. Now he's going to want a contract. You're definitely not going to give him one after 900 yards and 6 or 7 touchdowns. So now you're out 2 weapons. Jaden Daniels is going to his 3rd year, which means his contract extension is going to be about,
I would say 55 minimum.
Yeah, 55 after that. But he's going to play his 3rd year without any
you're
weapons.
Looking at a 24-year-old Jaden Daniels or 25-year-old Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, but think about it. If you lose Terry McLaurin, either this offseason or the next one, because you don't pay him, You're probably not going to keep Debo if he doesn't have a 1,200-yard season. So now you're going to go into your quarterback's third year, the year where he basically can position himself to get an extension with less weapons. He won 12 games his first year. We're looking about like 10 this year. So he's 22 wins in his first 2 years. And then he's going his third year. You give him less weapons. What if he goes 8-9, but still wants an extension? And you're going to pay him based off the 12 wins. This is how these teams end up in these pitfalls, trying to play hardball with your employees. So it's not somebody trying to leave. It's not someone trying to take something from you. So these organizations, and we're going to talk about Michael Parsons, they're playing hardball with the guys that they brought in. It's like you shouldn't be having strike level conversations, negotiations with the people who are already employed by your company, who already provided you services, goods, jersey sales, ticket sales, sacrifice their body physically. It's like it has to be a recognition. Like, I get it that it's a negotiation, but we're an eternal conversation. It's not you're not involved to fight on the outside. Like, you're on the inside. And every team that treats their players this way, as we about to transition to the Cowboys.
Well, I was just going to ask you real quick, give me a team or two that if Washington were to trade him that you think would be involved or might be a good fit or whatever it may be.
Let me think. Who drafted a wide receiver? Like, obviously, you go with the heavy hitters. You got your Buffaloes, because I think Buffalo would definitely love to have another, a true number one if they view Terry McLaurin that way. But you're already in the training camp, so it's unlikely for a team with Super Bowl aspirations to bring in a guy that they expect to contribute to the Super Bowl. You have a team like Dallas is they're squared away. Kansas City, obviously,
Baltimore. We would do that anyway.
yeah, you wouldn't do that, but like Baltimore, maybe the Chargers. The Chargers probably could use a piece. I'm not the Jets. I think they're pretty solid at their 1 and 2, but also you got to pay them. So I just don't foresee any owner, because they have more of a fraternity than the players do.
Mm-hmm.
They have more of an affinity for each other than the players do. And I think that even if an owner wanted to reach out, they wouldn't, just to allow the Washington ownership group to be able to stand their ground and maintain their leverage over the players, which owners have, as we can tell by these kind of.
I was thinking Raiders. I was thinking Raiders or Cardinals. One of those two. Get Kyler Murray another weapon, and see what you got. Because you gave him the money, but is he truly your future quarterback? Get him another weapon.
I don't think they believe in him, and I think they're willing to just kind of highlight Marvin Harrison Jr. That way, when they get rid of Kyler Murray, they can maybe coax a free agent quarterback or something like that. I think they're done with Kyler. It'd be like whoever the next Sam Darnold is, kind of a situation.
Yeah, and then you got the Raiders, like I said, with Pete Carroll. I just feel like that's one of those moves. So nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah. So not many. Like I said, the owners like to maintain their leverage, and this they stick together. Like, they split $1 billion a week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these 32 ownership groups get like $1 billion a week, and they have their meeting and they divvy it up probably every Tuesday. They look out for each other more than the players, because it's just, like I said, it's too many of them.
So where we at on Micah? 4-year contract, $17 million. Up at the end of this year. It's like we haven't seen this before. And, Dallas went through this twice with Dak. There was the year where they could have probably got him for about 26, and they ended up paying him about 34 or so. Then they could have probably got him for 52, 53, maybe even 55, but then they ended up having to shell out 60. What's happening, man?
It lends to my piece where the owners and the agents are not internally connected. So I think the owner is battling with the agent not understanding that the player you employ is closer to you and more valuable to you than he or she is to the agent. The player can get rid of the agent in a text message if necessary.
Uh-huh.
Like, yo, I'm done with you. You settle whatever, law, whatever money that's owed, you settle it, and that's it. The player's locked into the team. The player's ingratiated to the team. They operate like a brotherhood as far as a team. The players on the team know each other's families. They're in each other's weddings. They probably went to high school, college together. These guys are really locked in. So the owner is looking at the agent and he's battling with the agent, not recognizing, like, yo, dog, you're killing your relationship with the player. It's like when a husband and wife argue in front of the kid. It's like, listen, the kid is your priority. Winning this argument isn't. Mm-hmm. Saying whatever foul thing to win this argument, or being demonstrative or angry or mad to win this argument isn't isn't the end game here. It's not the goal here. The goal is like your kid. So as a owner, the goal should be like, how do I get this player who can help my team succeed? How do I get him in the building? Not how do I win this argument with his agent? And I think Jerry gets into like, oh, he talks about how he's such a great negotiator. We don't need to be a great negotiator. Be a good GM. Your negotiation skills are irrelevant. You shouldn't be trying to squeeze blood out of the stone of your team. And I think this is the straw. He's done it for so long, but they've been so successful, both in like the rise of how the value of the team, the evaluation there, and like I said, the TV success and the previous, couple of decades where they had some Super Bowl runs. But now guys are like, I'm done with this BS with you. You keep doing it, I'm done. And Michael's looking at like, yo, I'm making enough money. I'm a kid from Pennsylvania with Penn State. I'm making plenty of money. I don't need to be a Dallas Cowboy to make money doing what I do. He's a value position, and he's really good at it. That's his leverage, and I'm glad he's exercising, because Jerry, it's ridiculous that he keeps doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So real quick, you got any teams in mind for Micah?
Well, I mean, as a homer, if we didn't trade away our first round pick for 2026, I think that could have been in play. Because like I said, Atlanta's in the same boat. They're not paying the quarterback much money. They're not paying any wide receivers top dollar. I don't think Kyle Pitts got an extension. I believe
coming up, right?
He's probably coming up, but he won't have a $30 million argument.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'll have a good extension argument. He might have a franchise tag argument, but he won't have like, oh, I deserve 4 years, 33 each, or 4 years, 30 each. Mm-hmm. He won't. I don't think he has those kind of numbers, and because he doesn't play outside, he plays in the slot a lot of times. So I thought that could be a good spot. I think a team, once again, like a Super Bowl aspiration team like Buffalo, if they had the cash here to make that move, I think they could do it. Cincinnati, I think Cincinnati would be a fool if they can afford it.
They can't.
I don't know if they won't. They
still got to figure out Trey Hendrickson.
I don't know. I don't think they do signing trades in the NFL, but
I was thinking. So a couple teams that came to my mind was the Chargers was one that came to my mind. You're still in that division with Kansas City. You can't seem to beat them, so just go in. Miami. I thought about Miami and how pitiful their defense has been the last couple of years, especially with when they're healthy. You talked about it, off air, like the high-powered offense and all that. So getting a defender that can kind of help, because a guy like Micah can instantly improve your defense. He ain't going to make you top 5 per se by himself, but
he'll
it just
make your defensive tackle right that lines up next to him that much better.
Right.
Just off the line, having a shade to him at all puts their defensive tackles in an occasional one-on-one with the guard. Like, can you beat this guy because they're shading everybody over here? Can you beat this guy on the backside and make big penetration?
And then in my head, I was like, Mike McDonald would probably like a piece like that. out in Seattle, just off of his defensive background. He used to coach Roquan Smith and everything. Like, he might want something like that in his arsenal. But, that's just me. We'll see what happens. I don't think that, I think Terry could find himself in a franchise tag situation.
Do they have it available?
Was that?
You think he's going to report and play and then get franchised?
I mean, if he wants to give up his money, let him. You know what I'm saying? But Micah, on the other hand, I don't know if they come back from, I don't know if they come back.
I think Dallas is more likely to come back because Jerry doesn't want to lose in the public eye. And so him signing Micah, he'll still be able to spin like a win. Because he'll come out and say, we always had a plan to sign him. We just want to be a little bit more patient. But, hey, I respect what he does here and blah, blah, blah. And he'll have the microphones in his face. And we'll talk about it on this show and every other show through Monday. And then
let's go out here and go 8-9. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. But
that's how he builds his team.
But now, you know what I'm saying, we are here. The other day we previewed the NFC East, fun episode and everything. Now we're going to hit Mr. Logical's home. We going to the South. We going to the South where Tampa Bay is the only.
We don't give.
They are the only team in the NFC that has made the playoffs the last 5 years. They've won the last 4 division titles going back to the Tom Brady year. They've won every year since then. The Falcons, they seem to just always choose door number 2. Let's make it as difficult as we possibly can. Carolina is on the come up.
From jaws of victory.
Carolina's on the come up, but I still feel like they might be a year away from actually getting, because I've heard a lot of hype about them this year. They could make the playoffs, all this kind of stuff, but I think they're a year away from that kind of talk. And then the Saints, they belong in the UFL. I mean, they went out here and drafted Brandon Whedon, then they brought in Kellen Moore, I don't know what they're doing, but, we'll get to all that. So, Mr. Logical, can Tampa Bay make it 5 in a row?
The game against Washington last year for the Falcons where they don't call the timeout. That game should have gone differently. Atlanta's in the driver's seat of winning the division. So even with the up and down performance of Kirk Cousins and then bringing in the rookie, the drafting, even with all of the things that went wrong, Atlanta still had a real shot at winning the division. I think people like Tampa Bay, and I believe they feel like Tampa Bay's better than they are because we like the Baker redemption story aspect of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But even in that Week 18 game, they only beat Carolina 9-0. And I think at one point, Carolina had a fumble go out of the back of the end zone when they were about to score a touchdown, like early in that game. So it would have put them up, but they fumbled it out of the end zone, and then Tampa Bay got the ball back. So they won that Week 18 game to seal the division 9-0 in Carolina. It wasn't like the weather wasn't crazy. So
I'm disappointed in you right now.
What?
You were supposed to lead off with, and the Falcons swept Tampa last year.
I'm like, listen, I'm getting on everything else. And Kirk Cousins did throw 500 yards against them. I was at the Pink concert.
Did. You were supposed to lead with that.
I was literally at the Pink concert on my phone on Amazon Prime. In between her set changes, I was like, "Oh snap!" And I put the phone
Falcon
back.
Fan, that's where you start.
Well, listen, I was gonna get there, but like I said, I love the Baker Mayfield like story because I thought he got a raw deal in Cleveland. Like there's no reason for them to go out and get Deshaun Watson. It wasn't as if he wasn't, up to snuff. The team was just up and down, like the emotions. They have a good year, and and I talk about the emotions of a team and how it goes in ebbs and flows, and the self-awareness of reckoning. Like, you know what? We're in a down situation right now, but we are a couple of different attitudes away from changing. Like Philly was in their funk, lost to Tampa Bay in that playoffs before last season, in between the 2 Super Bowls. Some players retired, some players left. They got some other guys, some rookies in, and then they went right back to business. Tampa Bay, a lot of guys are a year older, coming off of injuries. I know Mike Evans pretty much wills himself every week to play, but he's getting up there in age as well. I like the youth of Atlanta, but I don't think Tampa Bay is going to repeat as champion. I don't want to sound like a homer, but we'll get to it after we check the schedule.
This is one of those divisions that I hate because, you ever watch, we talk about this all the time. Like things just seem too obvious. Like,
yes.
So I feel like Tampa has the least questions of everybody. You know what I mean? From the standpoint of we know what their identity is. They're going to blitz. That's their identity. Atlanta, like we talked about, always find their way in these games that
turning lemonade into lemons.
Yeah,
every month.
Yeah, and Carolina, Bryce Young took a step forward at the end of last year, but the rest of the team has to come with him. And then we already talked about the Saints for a second. So when I look at Tampa, right, even with everything that you said, right, Baker Mayfield with the career year and all this kind of stuff, he still led the league in interceptions last year. You know what I'm saying? He was tied with Kirk Cousins, of all people, for the league.
He didn't even play,
Who didn't even play the last, five games or so. 3 games, like maybe, But anyway, Baker did throw for 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns. So it was very Josh Allen-like of him. I used to use this as a point to not pick a team, but Tampa lost their offensive coordinator as well. And this is Baker's 3rd offensive coordinator in the last 3 years. But we talked about it with Jalen Hurts the other day. Some guys just overcome that. Right. But Todd Bowles isn't an offensive mind. So in Jalen Hurts' case, you got a Sirianni who's a bold coach. He goes for the 4th downs. You just have this toughness about you. Todd Bowles is a defensive guy that doesn't have a good defense. You know what I mean? So I don't know how he helps Baker Mayfield, continue to grow in that way. Their offensive coordinator, I heard today on the Favorites that their offensive coordinator, Josh Grizzard, was the wide receiver coach when Jalen Waddle broke the Miami record for rookie wide receivers. And I was like, who else was even on that team that was stopping him or competing with him for those completions that year? Tyreek wasn't there yet. But when I look at Tampa, to your point about Mike Evans, it's a valid point. But I would also mention they drafted Emeka Egbuka. Jalen McMillan came on at the end of last year. So what that means to me is that they can take their time and allow Chris Godwin to get back into shape because he's probably going to start the season on the PUP list. So maybe you get him around week 5, week 6-ish, maybe. So you got that going there. Baker also got sacked a lot too. 40 times, which was tied with Aaron Rodgers for 7th in the league. But the difference, I think, between Tampa Bay and what we have known them to be, Tampa Bay can actually run the ball now. Bucky Irvin, the first Tampa Bay running back since Doug Martin back in 2015 to hit 1,000 yards. And by the way, Sean Tucker, who nobody heard of out of Syracuse, came in for a game and ran for 136 yards last year. You still got Rashard White to give you that balance and catch the ball out of the backfield. So I think Tampa will be fine offensively. The question is, what can they do defensively? Because they went out and got Emeka Egbuka. But I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, why didn't they get Jahdae Barron or a secondary player or someone? Because I like Zion McCollum, but he's got some growing to do. He's not there yet.
But Jihad Campbell, why'd you let him slip to Philly?
Right. You know what I mean? So, and of course, they got my guy Antoine Winfield, my favorite DB in the league. So you got some pieces, but Vita Vea is another year older. Levante David, I think, is 75 now. So, Tampa still has issues. So I'm not going to sit up here.
It's going to be a minute to register that 75.
I'm not going to paint the picture as if Tampa is this flawless team that can't be stopped. This division is just crazy to me because I know I said what I said about Carolina being a year away, but way that
they could end up with 10 wins.
Yeah, the way that Atlanta the way that Atlanta does this, I mean, look. But anyway, we'll get back. We'll get to it to Atlanta. But Tampa was 29th against the pass, but they were 5th in sacks. So you know what that says to me? They're Sammy Sosa.
All or nothing. Swinging for the fences, I'm striking out.
There you go. So I don't know how long you can survive, that way. Especially year to year when you're not.
Hence why they went 10-7. It's like
right.
That 10-7 is coupled with the fact that they got like I said, they lost two games to the Falcons,
and they did bring in Hassan Reddick this offseason as well. So
but Hassan Reddick, like, does he care to play football?
We're gonna find out.
He spent last year in Japan, right? Like he just was like the anime show.
Yeah, he was out there. What was that?
Like he was wearing like a kimono.
Avengers Endgame, where Hawkeye went and became Ronin and started chopping people down in the streets.
It was completely out. And I get that you want to work your leverage, but a lot of guys. I've heard a lot of this conversation recently about like players in locker rooms that recognize certain people are there for the love of money. Some people are there for the love of the game, and some people are there just because they're just good at the sport, and they've always been good at the sport. And it's like, if you can spend a whole year away, like Le'Veon Bell was never the same after he came back.
Right.
Because you spent that year away, you just get complacent. It's like there's only so much you can really do.
So looking at this, and I'm about to contradict myself because I'm picking Tampa to win the division, but I'm about to contradict myself.
That's cool.
They could be looking down the barrel of 1-3. They could be. I don't know. They could be looking down that barrel.
At Atlanta,
toss up.
It's a toss up.
Yeah.
At Houston, if Houston hasn't fixed their interior line problem, you talk about how they were 5th in sacks. If Houston hasn't fixed their interior line problems, that's going to limit their play calling. That's going to limit how far they can throw the ball down the field. So
Tampa might be the one team that has a worse secondary than Washington.
The Jets, I have no idea what they're going to look like with Justin Fields, essentially in the exact same situation he was in Chicago with the young defensive head coach.
Philly's got that game circled because over the last couple of years, Tampa Bay just seems to have their number. You brought up the playoff game. Last year they beat Philly by 17. So, like, Philly's got that game circled, and it's usually the other way around. So you got the champs, Booker T style. Remember Booker T, Hulk Hogan? I'm coming for you. That's what he's doing right now.
Yeah, he was aggressive. That was the most aggressive fucking interview I've ever seen.
But then you got to go to Seattle, and I'm not saying that Seattle is a great team, but we know that if there's a tough place to play in the NFL, it's Seattle. You know what I mean?
But the thing about the NFC South, they can go 3-3 in these first 6 and be tied for first.
But it don't get better per se, because you still got this San Francisco Detroit back to back. So like
3-4, 4-3 in the NFC South starting off the year because it seems like teams don't really. NFC South teams rarely start out 6-1. It's just not a thing that has happened recently. Even with Tom Brady. Tom Brady, I think they ran off like 5 games in a row into the playoff run to the Super Bowl. So it was even I think they were like 7-5 or something. But those 5 losses weren't good losses, and the 7 wins, a couple of them were like 24, 23 kind of wins. So the NFC South is kind of famous for just kind of towing that line of average and mediocrity, and then one team inevitably just slips. Atlanta last year had a good little run, lost like 4 games in a row. I think Atlanta was like 6-2, I believe. I want to say 5-2, 6-2. A couple of those wins were Tampa Bay wins, and then lost 4 or 5 games in a row.
Kirk Cousins, 18 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. So if they could get to 5-6, after the Rams game, if they could be, because they got their bye week in week 9. So if they could be 5-6,
they still can end up they can end their season 10-7.
Go 10-7 again. Yeah, you got Atlanta and Arizona and New Orleans.
Those are 2 wins.
Both of them are at home.
7-6.
And then you got Atlanta. How they get 3 home games in a row? You know what I'm saying? You go to Carolina, which isn't necessarily this scary place. You got Miami, and then you
Same
got
state,
Carolina.
same
So
good weather.
So maybe Atlanta or Miami clips you, but you should win the rest of those games theoretically. Maybe you don't sweep Carolina, but you should. But you should.
You're in the prime time. The Atlanta game is prime time. Baker he's a prime time personality. I'm not sure what his record is prime time, but he seems to thrive in those moments where it's like Kirk Cousins didn't. There's no controversy. Like, I think Tampa Bay is going to ride or die with the players that they have. We talk about, Ohio State being a new wide receiver but rookie wide receivers rarely make an impact, especially as a third option. Because it's a lot of stuff you got to learn and navigate as a third option, where to sit down in the zone, how to come off this coverage. When they were outside guys and they were getting safety help over top and a corner underneath, like, if I could beat this guy, get to this spot, I'm the best dude on this football team in college, I can make it work. But coming inside on the slot might not be the same thing. Or, being a fourth wide receiver, you might not go four wide that often. Most teams like to keep a tight end in there for, the shift and the blocking, and maybe he goes on the route. So I like what they did. I like their, a couple of their draft picks, but I just feel like because the NFC South is what it is, and Todd Bowles is a good coach. I think he's a good defensive coach, but like you said, the defense isn't great. The lack of offensive coordinator, and Baker's a big personality. He's getting a lot of MVP hype. I've seen a lot of those conversations. People like he's like their sneaky MVP pick because I think people view the division as so weak that he could have this 11-6, 12-5 kind of year, because it's just gonna essentially they're booking them for 6 wins in the division.
And you know what? They could, because the difference between Tampa and Atlanta, as we transition, last year Atlanta was 6-3 in one score games. Tampa was 2-5. So you figure the old wives' tale, right? It's got to switch a little bit. Some of those games are going to reverse. So 2-5, and they went 10-7. You could be talking about a 13-win team if you just flipped a couple of games last year.
Yeah, the game they lost to Atlanta on that slant route, it was in overtime. I think Atlanta had threw like 50 passes. It was a lot. And the guy who caught the slant was like the punt returner. He probably was the freshest dude on the field. So when he caught the slant, everybody else has been on the field all the game. He's like, I caught a couple of punts, and I was on punt coverage, if that. So when he got that slant, it wasn't even like a blown coverage. He just was able to beat a couple of guys up the alley. Mm-hmm. And by then, once he got into space, it's like you got a guy who probably touched the ball 6 times that day, who was fully energetic at the end of the game. I think it's probably like 11:30, 12. It was like almost midnight when the game ended.
Right. So when it comes to Atlanta, every single year I feel like I say the same thing. So let's cue it up. So how can a team that is so talented be so poorly constructed? They got talent. They got Drake London. They got Bijan Robinson. They got Kyle, just talent. They got Kyle Pitts. You know what I mean? And, when you look at them, Mr. Logical comes on here all the time and says, why this team won't go get defensive players, people that can rush the passer, right? So the draft came. They got Jalen Walker out of Georgia. Finally took Mr. Logical's advice. Got the guy down the street.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Then they went and got James Pierce, even though we didn't like that they gave up a first round pick to get
that right there, that is the problem with Atlanta. That as you asked what the problem is, that is the problem. The problem is this. I think about this one time. I used to work out at an MMA gym back in like 2013 when we were at Hill. I used to work out at this MMA gym because I didn't want to run around the track. And I remember I was like sparring with a guy in the corner. And I think at that point I was probably like 205, 210, right? Some guy came over to me. He was like, yo, why you bouncing on your toes like that? I'm like, I'm just trying to stay ready. He was like, nah, man, you're too big for that. He was like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. He's like, you're big. He's like, you need to watch like old Mike Tyson just head movies, like because you bounce up and down like that, you're gonna tire yourself out. You're too big.
Yep.
He was like, you need to stay on your toes, but you don't need to be bouncing. It's like that's not what you need to do. Like you're more of a brick house, just getting close. And I'm like, I never even thought of that. Atlanta is a team that's bouncing on their toes when they need a completely different strategy and they're getting exhausted because they keep getting guys on the back end. They keep worrying about these corners. I'm like, get someone that can push the pile between the guard and the 2A gaps. You need 2 players that can push that into the chest of the quarterback. Then you build out from there. They're getting all this speed on the edge, and they're putting 285-pound guys in the middle against 325-pound guards and wonder why, how come we're not getting any penetration? Well, these dudes are outweighed by 40 pounds. 40 pounds in the NFL is a lot. That's a lot.
Here's a quick pop quiz for you.
Let's hear it.
Who is the last Falcon to end the season with double-digit sacks?
Vic Beasley Jr.?
Vic Beasley Jr., 2016, the Super Bowl year. When was the last time the Falcons won the NFC South?
Not 2017. They went back to the playoffs. 2016.
It was the same year. And you know what's funny about that is the last time Carolina won a division? 2015, the year that they went to the Super Bowl. It's been Saints and Bucks this whole time. So Atlanta has a prime chance this year because in addition to what we were talking about, they went out and got Leonard Floyd. You know, it sounds like they're going to switch to the 3-4 because they brought Jeff Ulbrich in. You know, he was the interim coach for the Jets as the defensive coordinator. So it sounds like they're going to switch up to the 3-4. So if you're not going to be able to, say, get a lot of pressure, the least you could do is have speed on the edges. So
Urban Meyer loves the 3-4. I saw a video.
I love the 3-4 too.
He was like, you could do so much with it. I always felt like it feels like
at least on NCAA.
You're giving up. You're giving up like, you know, the B gaps. But the way he explained it was like you're having 4 athletic linebackers that can, and then but you need a good nose guard. You need a guy. You need a meaty Vince Wilfork kind of anchor in the middle that demands attention from both guards and the center, at least mental attention. Like
they don't have that.
All 3 of them have to be thinking, what do I do if he comes this way? What do I do if he goes that way? And then adjust to the other guy that might be trying to blitz in the B gap.
And they don't
if you don't have that guy, and it's like the center's like, yo, I got him. And then he just snaps the ball and he pushes this 285-pound guy over. Then the guard's helping on each end, or the other guy slides to James Pierce, who's a rookie, or what's the other guy's name?
Jalen Walker,
who's also a rookie, has to learn technique. And it's like Floyd's a little older. So I just feel like it's wishful thinking, but just the things you need to be successful. When shit's falling apart, Atlanta doesn't have. They don't have a strong offensive line.
And they lost Dahlman.
They signing Kirk Cousins to the $180 million deal will hurt Atlanta this season. Trading for James Pierce is going to hurt them next season and the season after that. Unless somebody just flat out pops. Somebody's like, yo, we got a diamond in the rough with this guy off the practice squad, or Michael Penix really just has that Jaden Daniels kind of maturity that translates to the field. It's going to be tough. I still think they can win this division. I think 9-8 and 10-7 is realistic. I just feel it's going to be the same thing that I've always complained about for years, is where it's like, why are we not controlling any side of the line of scrimmage consistently? There's going to be games where they do. Yeah.
You know, Bijan Robinson finished 3rd in rushing last year. You know, Michael Penix Jr., I got a lot of respect for Michael Penix Jr. because everybody's looking at Kurt Signetti and what the Hoosiers did last year. Michael Penix Jr. was the person that showed that you could win at Indiana. So the problem with Michael Penix was he was always injured. So it's one of those things where that's always in the back of your mind. Like, he hasn't been injured. He wasn't injured last year at Washington. They made it to the national title game. You know, he played last year, avoided injury for those 5 games that he appeared in. Now we got a whole new season. So even though he hasn't been hurt, there's still that part of you that remembers, He's been hurt.
For me, because injuries happen at such a crazy, we talked about the NBA season. We had 2 guys in the playoffs pop their Achilles, or I think even Dame popped his
three.
early.
Yeah.
So, and Jason Tatum was balling. I think he had 40 points that game.
Mm-hmm.
And Halliburton
they were still losing too.
And they were still losing. And Halliburton was like, he was having a good game to start. He's had a really good playoff run. So injuries happen. So like, I don't even look at like the injury, because I figured, yes, there's going to be a talent drop off from your starter and your backup. It's inevitable. The fact that they try to draft themselves out of this inevitable thing is like, why would you do that? Why would you draft yourself trying to combat a hypothetical inevitable situation versus like winning the line of scrimmage is definitive. If you win the line of scrimmage, as Pittsburgh, the game they had against Cleveland, where they forced all those turnovers and won the game like 12-10 or some crazy low number like that. It's like, well, they forced like 4 turnovers, or they forced, 4 and out, or like, turnovers on downs.
Mm-hmm.
That's because you win the line of scrimmage. I just feel like sometimes they don't do that. They're going to have the talent. They're going to probably win a couple of shootouts. Bijan's going to have one of those games. Drake London's going to have one of those games. We keep waiting for Kyle Pitts to break out. And honestly, if they just kind of recognize like, yo, he probably can't beat this corner. So let's either get another receiving tight end and put them both in the game and see if we can get him on a linebacker.
Or
we get him in the flats.
Or how about get a viable third receiver? Because, Darnell Mooney seemed like he was making all the big catches at the right times last year. Drake London was the leader, but Darnell seemed like he was the guy that
that was getting
at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you got Ray McLeod. That's not a viable third receiver. That's a special teams guy.
He's a special teams guy. Like I said, once again, it's just that
poorly constructed.
That $180 million could have been divided up probably 6 times, and you could have gotten 4 Pro Bowl caliber players for that money per year. I imagine, because like, okay, if you figure you're gonna pay, I'm gonna pay Michael Penix Jr. because I'm gonna draft him 8th. I'm taking him 8th. So I'm gonna run with him. Maybe you can go. Maybe Von Miller could have been available. I mean, I know it's an old head, but it's like you could have got like a mercenary and Dominican Sue kind of deal. Give him $7.5 million for 1 year. Just get these guys. Listen, I know you're not part of our long-term plan, but we're gonna get this young quarterback. We need to find a way to get him the ball back as quick as possible to give as many possessions as he can. They made the Rondell Moore deal. I don't know how Desmond Ridder, the Arizona, worked out but he ended up tearing his ACL. If he comes back, hopefully we can exploit that. I just feel like because the NFC South they're just basically 3 very similar teams, 3 teams that could be 8-9, or one of them can be 10-7, and the other one can be 7-10, and then one in the middle can be 9-8 or 8-9 between Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Atlanta. However you want to slice it alphabetically, the year, the age of the coaches, however way you want to stack those 3, that's how it can end up. New Orleans being a team that's going to give away all these wins to everybody else
should be relegated.
Yeah. So,
but why?
That's why I still think Atlanta
could have went out and got De'Ami Brown. You know what I mean? Just something simple as that. Deep threat. Take the top off a little bit.
You got a young quarterback. Young quarterbacks need big targets.
They got big targets already.
They have Kyle Pitts and Drake London. Everybody else is under 6
That's 2 big targets. How many big targets you need?
4. They had 4. With Desmond Ridder, they had 4.
You just go get the Monstars. And how did that work?
They had Drake London. Well, they had Arthur Smith. That was the problem there. They had Kadero Patterson, 6'3", 6'4". They had Bijan Robinson. They had the boy that wears no shoes all the time, Mac Hollins, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and they had Jonnu Smith.
Well, guess what?
But they didn't treat that team like they had those pieces. I'm like, why aren't you lining up, like you said, the Monstars? average DB is 6'1.5".
Well, you
I
see
got 5 guys that are over 6'4". And
you
like,
see
nah,
who,
we're gonna run with these. We're gonna put this running back in here and run this same bullshit action.
you see who Atlanta got stashed at the bottom of the roster, don't you? They got the
I know his wife ain't go out there, and that's a mean. That's a mean thing to do, Mike.
they got him down there, and then you know what I mean.
You
But
cut out. You cut out. I didn't hear it. That's what I'm saying. Like it cut out right when you say, you know who you got, and then it cut out.
Nick Nash, you know what I'm saying, from San Jose State, led the nation in receiving yards last year. Utilize them, you know what I mean? And then not only that, I forgot to mention when we were talking about Tampa, we got to see how Benjamin Morrison comes back because he can, I like him a lot. He's a rookie, but he's coming off of a hip surgery. But if he can get right, that challenges Atlanta's, receivers in their lack of having a third receiver because you don't need him to come in and say, go shut down Drake London. You could put him on Ray or something until he gets right. But
yeah,
anyway,
I think Rondell Morris is on his way back. But
yeah, and the one thing that Atlanta has, and I know Mr. Logical, might half-heartedly agree with me when I say this. I don't know how much I could trust Raheem Morris.
The one thing I do like about Raheem Morris is that I think he takes the position of head coach seriously. I think he takes the position of being like a leader of men seriously. I just didn't like a couple of the, first of all, I didn't like the draft pick. I didn't like the signing of Kirk Cousins in the draft pick. I think that set the whole year off wrong. And it just was like the cloud over the season all year long. I would have rather had Michael Penix go 7-10, but get some growing pains and then still have this money versus literally Kurt is not going to ruffle feathers, but he's also going to take that $34 or $35 million they owed him this year and sit there quietly. That's not what I need. I don't need to pay somebody $35 million to provide nothing but guidance.
Mm-hmm. Knock on wood.
Can talk to you and give you guidance.
Knock on wood. Maybe somebody gets hurt, takes them off your hands.
Not for that money. Not for that money. Because somebody could have done it already. You don't think Minnesota probably like, Mike, come on back. Seattle. There's some teams out like the Raiders. You think the Raiders wanted to extend Geno? If Kurt's money wasn't crazy, I think they probably could have made that move.
Pete Carroll got the relationship with Geno, but you got Carolina. I've been hearing a lot of hype, like I said, and it pisses me off because you remember last year we had this big 25-minute argument about whether Carolina was going to be better than the Saints or not. They ended up with the same record, but it was one of those things. So this year I was like, okay, maybe I was a year too early. You know what I mean? Maybe I was a year off. So maybe Carolina could get the 7-8 wins this year. And then I start talking to people. I start turning on TV, and all I hear is, oh, Carolina, better watch out for Carolina. They came on late at the end of last year. And I'm like, damn. You know what I'm saying? So,
Bryce Young did play with a lot of confidence, but he still does have a limitation of being 5'10". Whatever they list him at, he's 5'10", 5'9.5 at best.
Are you ready for your next question on your pop quiz?
Are we going to go down this schedule and see what those numbers look like? Or?
Oh yeah, we will. But you brought up something, so I just want to get this out there real quick. How many 300-yard games does Bryce Young have?
0.
He has 1 back in 2023 when they upset the Packers. All right, so let's take it from the top. You got Tampa Bay, Minnesota, at Carolina, Washington. I see at least at a minimum they should be 3-1 if they want us to take them seriously. You could afford a loss to Tampa maybe early, even though it's a division loss. Maybe you could lose to Washington.
Are we going to Atlanta in September 27th so we can catch that game on the 28th and catch the flight back home the night of the 28th? You got to talk to Faye. Figure it out, because I got to be here for football on I believe the 27th that day, maybe 26th. I think Joe's got a game 26th, so I'm free to fly to Atlanta. I won't take Frontier. I suggest none of you do that either. But we're gonna. I mean, 3-1 is optimistic. The problem is I don't know what the offensive identity is. I don't know if it's. Are you trying to give the ball to Bijan 20 times in a handoff and 8 passes? Because eventually that'll get shut down. Do we have another offensive identity? How we doing on defense? I like the pick. I like Pierce as a talent, because I've always said, like, yo, how come Atlanta doesn't go out and get the 6'5", 260-pound guy that's available either in free agency or in the draft? They made that move. I respect it. But did you shore up the interior part of your line? Are you going to put on film that you can't stop the run? Are you going to put on film that you can't stop the pass? Can you? Because there's a play last year, Justin Jefferson ran right up the seam. The corner recognized, saw him, and then went to the other guy, and Justin Jefferson just caught the touchdown, was wide open, and walked in. So it was like, did you shore up those things? Raheem Morris, your defensive coach, or did you went to the offensive side of the ball with LA? So you should have like very broad, Did you shore that up? Because 2-2, 3-1 should be realistic, but 1-3 after week 4 wouldn't surprise me either. And that's the part that bothers me.
You know what I hate about Atlanta in memories? So as I was looking at the schedule, I was like, oh yeah, they should work Minnesota. And you know what came to my mind? Josh Dobbs, who wasn't even on the team, until like 4 days before that game.
He was the third quarterback to get in that game, I think. I think they knocked out the third string guy, the guy Jared Hall from BYU. He got knocked out of the game. And then Josh Dobbs, they say he didn't even know offensive lineman's name.
That's what I'm saying. So like that's why
and
I
led
like
the comeback drive. Right?
Memories, because this is a different Falcons team with a different coach. There's a different.
But every group has that game. It's like Dan Quinn had it obviously with the Super Bowl, and then the subsequent years, and there's like a couple of games against Chicago and the game against Dallas when no one dived on the onside kick before he got to 10 yards, and Dallas got it and ended up winning the game. And then it happened a lot. It happened in Detroit. I was literally at a bar watching the game. Like, it was like you go wear your jersey to the game, and it was on the big screen. Todd Gurley scores for no reason, and then Detroit goes down and scores and wins the game. That was a different group. That was a different group of players, a different coach, but it seems like every
some teams are just
segmented year
that way. Yeah,
they just do that. Yeah. So
then,
like I said, I got to ride with them, but
here's a back-to-back for you, back-to-back primetime games at that. You got Buffalo coming in week 6 after the bye week. You got San Francisco on the road the week after that on Sunday Night Football. That's going to be a tough back-to-back. You know what I mean? Especially for a young quarterback. I'm not saying that because he's obviously talented, but you at least got to get a split there to feel like, okay, we got something
in that
going
6-9, those 4 weeks.
Yeah, because
we got to be 4-4 going to Germany.
Yeah,
going to Germany to play Indianapolis, my dad's favorite team. Still trying to get tickets, still looking for it. But you got to be 4-4 there. You can't be 3-5 or worse. Like you have to be 500 going into that game, because Indianapolis, we don't know what AR-15 is going to be, or AR-5, excuse me. And is Daniel Jones, is going to be pressure from the fans to start Daniel Jones by then. So you might get a team that's a little bit discombobulated. And then they get to go to Germany and play a game. Last time they were there, Daniel Jones, he lost. So maybe he has a little PTSD. But if you come out week 9, after week 9, 4-4, that gives you a toss-up between Indianapolis, Carolina, and New Orleans. You could easily be 6-5 after that. Yeah. And you're above 500.
I would say 7-4, but yeah.
Yeah, 7-4, 6-5. The Jets, we know what they're going to be. So I just think you have you can't be worse than 4-4 after week 9.
Uh-huh.
Like if you could be 500 after the first weekend in November, I think you're sitting pretty good as far as the division. Because like I said, we don't feel Tampa's going to be that far ahead. I think everyone's going to be kind of like in this jumbled mess. You don't want to drop a silly game to New England and leave New England 3-5.
Right.
Because everybody else is probably going to beat New England in this
Yeah,
division,
and I mean, you
except
got
for New Orleans.
another young quarterback with a lot of talent that is probably going to have ups and downs. There's going to be good games. There's going to be rookie mistakes.
You got to create a bad game for a couple of these quarterbacks. You probably won't create a bad game for Josh Allen. Brock Purdy's probably going to be pretty solid. Tua depends on the relationships and if they soured in Miami.
And if he's there.
But if he's there and they have all their weapons, it's going to be tough because they get the ball out quick. But like these games against New England, Indianapolis, Carolina, New Orleans, New York, those games you gotta make it tough on the quarterback because Atlanta had they have a bad habit of making average quarterbacks look really, really good.
Right.
You got to make these guys, because I'm not going to say they're bums because they're NFL quarterbacks. You got to make these guys that are teetering on, that 10 to or that 15 to 25 range of ranking quarterbacks. You got to make them play at the bottom end of that tier. You can't have them playing around 12, going, 18 for 21 in the first half, a couple of touchdowns, no picks, that hadn't been sacked, because then you're done. And that's what happens in a lot of these games.
Yeah, you gotta like the close to that season. Even though you have to go to Tampa, like the Rams are the only team that you should maybe look at and say, can we score with them or whatever the case may be? But they also could be in a situation where they clinched the division already, or
they're wrapped up.
Yeah, or San Francisco would have clinched it already, or whatever the case may be. To where, if you're Atlanta, that might be, if you need that game, and that's the problem. Because when the Falcons need a game,
they do something that just talked about on First Take on Monday morning. It's like, why didn't they call a timeout there? Or why didn't they run out of bounds? Or why didn't they challenge that obvious drop? Like, stuff like that tends to happen. And then you get Raheem Morris, is very poetic and very, articulate at the podium. And he gives this very, very flowery answer. And it's like, at some point, you got to bite some kneecaps, Dan Campbell style, and really get shit cracking. I need you to punch the podium. I mean, I like Dennis Smith. I need you screaming Jim Moore playoffs. I need more than just this value gentleman kind of approach. I need more of a gritty, tough, we need to win in the trenches kind of approach. And I think Atlanta has a very wholesome view of how you play football and how you build a team. And it's like, nah, I need a dude in here who might slap the referee every once in a while. Get somebody in there to control him. But I need a dude that I know James Pierce, that argument that he was almost uncoachable. And it's unfair. But I think in years past, Atlanta would have just taken that guy completely off the board. Just off that rumor, off that report. Because that's what happened with the guy from Texas. Because they drafted the defensive tackle and they didn't take the All-American defensive tackle who went in the next pick.
And it's going to be weird seeing Atlanta without Grady Jarrett. But Carolina, we've been talking about it, weird year last year. You know what I mean? They came out early, got curb stomped a lot. Bryce Young got benched. Andy Dalton comes in. Andy Dalton gets in a car accident. Injures his thumb, Bryce Young back in, and then suddenly he found the magic. But, this is the thing about Carolina, right? So a lot of people are trying to use the end of last season the way they used the Phoenix Suns going undefeated in the bubble and thinking that was going to lead to something
carry over.
Right. So with that, Carolina gave up the most points of any team in NFL history in a single season last year. But within that season, they lost by 3 to Kansas City, in overtime to Tampa. One at the compressor.
And if Xavier Leggett doesn't drop that pass, I think they beat Philly.
Right. So like it was
he
the
rolls
weirdest
to the end
season.
zone if he doesn't drop
Like,
that pass.
So they on the season they got outscored by 193 points. And for those of you doing math at home, yes, their point differential was negative 11.5. So when you look at Carolina, it's like, okay, we got some stuff to build on, but maybe there's some more building that needs to be done before we can make these proclamations of this is a playoff team.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I said, I think the wide receiver room, I know people are really big on Horn out of Colorado.
Yeah, he looks good in camp.
He looks good in camp. I don't know how you deploy him when you have Thielen, Leggett, Tex, or T-Mac,
yeah.
and him. If you can go 4 wide, maybe you pull it off. I know they signed
Chuba, spread that field and let Bryce get some quarterback draws off.
Yeah, they signed. They extended their running back last year, like late in the season, Hubbard, which is a good smart move.
Yeah,
like I said, it's a value to a team, proverbially playing with house money, and I think Carolina is one of those teams. I think the way they ended last year is a lot like the Phoenix Suns in the bubble, because the Phoenix Suns in that 2021 season were a pretty good team.
Yeah.
I think they made the NBA Finals that following year.
They did.
I think if you're an owner, GM, player personnel, vice president, I think you can look at this season coming up and be like, all right, where can we make improvements? And because they were so poor defensively, if you could just cut down that differential or get to the point where it's like, okay, our offense is putting up 24, 25 points consistently. Our defense is getting better. If we can get it to 27.5 points and get our defense down to 23, we're in there. And once again, we're in a winnable division with one team that's getting a little older, and their coach is like an innovator in Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay. Atlanta's success or lack thereof won't really create a lot of changes. So if Atlanta goes 8-9 again this year, or even 7-10, they're going to bring the whole gang back, minus maybe a couple of players, but the quarterback's coming back, the coach is coming back, the GM's coming back, the coordinators are coming back. Like, everyone's going to come back because they don't make like these wholesale yard sale level changes. So Carolina's like, yo, New Orleans is 2 years away from figuring out whatever they got going on after this year. Because if they get a rookie, the expectation that you have a terrible team, you get a rookie with no weapons, that's going to take you another year to get. So they got you have 2 years in New Orleans. So if you're Carolina, you're like, yo, we can get it to, you guys are giving up only 22.5 points a game, and we can start scoring 25 to 26. It's a toss-up, and we got a shot. You got a young quarterback, doesn't seem to have a lot of ego that really gets in his way. We see a lot of quarterbacks get the mic in their face and they put their foot in their mouth, or they just figure like, oh, I'm the leader of the team, I can kind of say what I want. Like a la what Tua said about Tyreek Hill. He probably could have kept that in. Like, yeah, we're all here trying to just kind of process what happened last season.
Like, you could have called Tyreek 2 months ago.
Like, yeah, you don't need to be on doing the press conference with your new teeth and tattoos. Talk about what's going on in the locker room. Bryce never did that. I think his humility is going to help him there. I think the fact that they are likable, Xavier gets likable. As long as I know T-Mac kind of came out pretty cocky, but I think that physically, I think he just looks the part. He looks like this guy can be like 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah, him and Keon Coleman. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he's a little brasher, but yeah.
Yeah, and then, like I said, Xavier Leggett is everywhere. He's at award shows. People talk to him about raccoons and horses. It's just it gives a team like this calm, like their personality is creating like a calm around them, where they can just go play football,
right?
Win or lose, and just play football. And I wish that my team had that space, but they don't. And I think that's going to be that could be the difference between 6 wins and 8 wins. It's just that, all right, man, we're down 4. we're on the 30. You crack a joke about raccoons in the huddle, and you go out and you score the game-winning touchdown. Like it sounds crazy, but like for instance, Joe Montana, they said before that drive against Cincinnati, they said he looked up and saw John Candy in the end zone and cracked a joke like, yo, who wants to go shake his hand? And like they would now score the touchdown on that end. But it was like it calmed everybody down. Like just kind of having that resolve with your team is, I think, something that Bryce Young probably has. He probably has like that calming effect, in the locker room and in the huddle.
And in Carolina,
I just hope they lose to Atlanta twice.
Carolina has some positives coming in. Chuba Hubbard, we talked about, finished 8th in the league in rushing last year and didn't play the last 2 or 3 games. You got Derek Brown, who is probably one of the best defensive tackles in the league, but he got injured early last year, didn't play the whole season. So you were talking about with Atlanta, that guy in the middle. So, so Carolina has that guy in the middle, which is a start.
It changes so much of how you can call your defense when you can just take up 2 guys. You can just take up two blockers.
Yep.
Two people have to pay attention to you every play. That changes everything you can do defensively.
And they went out and got Nick Skirton in the draft from Texas A&M. The hype was about Shamar Smith because he's the raw one. Skirton's the one that's ready now. You know what I mean? They brought in Trayvon Morick from the Raiders to add to the secondary. They locked up J.C. Horn. You talked about the receivers already. So look, Carolina is going to beat some teams this year that are going to make our eyebrows raise. I just don't know if they can consistently put it together over the course of, say, a 5-game stretch where every week they look like the team that pulled that upset. They're one of those teams, right, that you talked about it. They almost beat Philly last year. They lost to Kansas City by 3.
Leggett was wide open. He just the ball. Sometimes when you're so wide open, you're just like you forget the basics of like you just grab this ball out of the air. He just kind of let it get into his body and it bounced.
Right. So what's crazy about that is, in the same breath that we can say they almost beat Philly, the 2 teams that played in the Super Bowl, they won 5 games. You know what I mean? So there's still some work to be done. So here we go. Taking it from the top. And Mr. Logical, I don't know about you, but I am ready for this week 1 matchup. I am ready for that matchup. I ain't gonna lie to you, and this is one of those.
I'm surprised it's not prime time.
But this is one of those 2-5 moments. That's the game I'm looking most forward to week 1.
Carolina at Jacksonville.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence coming back. Travis Hunter. You know what I mean? Can Bryce Young continue the momentum? I love Dave Canales, as a head coach. He was Baker's offensive coordinator before he got the Carolina job. And then Duval was...
God, that's the worst opening press conference in the history of sports.
He was Baker's offensive coordinator last year. So you know what I mean? So you just got a matchup. You got storylines. The last 2 expansion teams to come into the NFL, we got all kinds of stories here. 2-5 is here for it. But, then they go out to the desert after that. So that's going to be tough. Playing in Florida and then having
I know what to make of Arizona when we do our pre.
Well, it's not even Arizona.
I don't know if they're a bad team or what.
I'm just thinking about the travel. You know what I'm saying? Playing in Florida. I don't know if they go to back to Carolina in between, or if they leave Florida and go straight to Phoenix. But, there's a lot of logistics involved.
Most teams do that when they go to Seattle, but they don't do it when they go, just one state, one, time zone east of that. So it's always, blows my mind. Everybody leaves early when they go to Seattle or they go to San Francisco, but they leave regular when they go to Arizona.
And then we talked about the early game with Atlanta. It's at home. So, you know what I mean? You got to have a puncher's chance. You ended the season with a win at Atlanta. So you got to feel like, hey, they're coming to our turf now. You know what I mean? New England, we talked about it. What's New England going to be? Is Drake May still going to be making mistakes that make you question why they drafted him?
Is he still going to be trying to run over linebackers? Because that's not your job, homie.
Right. So then you get into the meat of it. that we were talking about off air.
Pause.
Yeah, get into the meat, baby. You know what I'm saying? They have the meats, but Miami, Dallas back to back at the Jets. So, maybe a breather there, but then Buffalo and at Green Bay back to back. So if you could get out of that stretch 3-2.
When is their bye week? Week 13? Is there week 14? Is their bye week?
Week 14 is their bye week.
So you're looking at,
and that's the other problem with their schedule is that
your first 13 games are back to back. So you're playing straight from September to the end of November. So basically September to December. Then you finally get your break after Thanksgiving. And you're playing. Well, I guess you get they don't even get like a mini break, like a Thursday night, and then and
then they got this break. Then they got this weird thing where they start at Jacksonville, go to Arizona, saying they go New England,
back home,
come home from Miami, then they play Dallas, then they go to New York, then they come home to play another New York team, and then they go to Lambeau. So it's like, come on, like I don't know.
They're better off if they could have got the Jets, Buffalo on the road, and then back home for Green Bay, New Orleans. I'd be better about that stretch.
Right.
But that's a tough back to back. Considering that we talked about Buffalo in a little bit in our pre-meeting. We think they're like the cream of the crop in the AFC East. So that's gonna be a tough game.
And then look at 11 through 13 there. Saying you go to the compressor, then you got to go all the way out to San Francisco.
Then you got to come all the way back home 6 days later
to play the Rams.
And you're getting San Francisco Monday Night Football.
Yep. I think Residente will be there for that one. Then after the bye week, you get the CFL team.
And then you get your back-to-back Tampa Bay 2 weeks apart.
Yeah, so I think that this is going to be, I don't want to be cliche, but this is going to be one of those, this team is better even though the record doesn't reflect it. Because
13 weeks, and they go to 9 through 13 again real quick. So scroll back up. So 9 through 13 gets you Green Bay, New Orleans, Atlanta, San Francisco, Los Angeles. I'm not even counting in the Buffalo. Like you could go 1-4 in that stretch, or respectfully go 2-3. You could put up a valiant effort and go 2-3. You could score 27 points in each one of those games and go 2-3.
With the schedule, with the way that it lines up with the teams, they might give the Saints their only win.
Just because they're getting they have the Miami Dallas tough stretch. New York's a toss up because we don't know what Justin Fields is going to be. Then you go back to back Buffalo, Green Bay. Those could be blowouts.
Yeah, you could be beat up. You know what I mean?
Beat up, blown out, and then. But New Orleans, I think New Orleans is by then. I imagine anybody with any trade value is already on the block. That was already gone. The trade deadline is what, mid-October, like October.
November, I want to say, because we looked it up last week.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The other day, yeah.
Either like week 6 or week 9.
Let's see. I'm gonna look it up again
after
real
week
quick.
9.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's just one of those things where, as you look at the schedule, it's not so much the teams that they play because, you play the divisions that you're matched up with. It's the order and the succession of the teams that they play.
So you play the AFC East,
November 4th.
Back twice. So you play New England, Miami. That's 2 AFC East teams back to back. And then you play the Jets and Buffalo back to back with a visit from Dallas in the middle.
So the trade deadline is the beginning of the week that they would play New Orleans.
So you figure New Orleans is whatever their record is after 9 weeks, whatever their bye week is. It's going to be pretty bad. We're
0-9 probably.
0 something, 1 something at best. So you figure Kamara's gone. Cameron Jordan's gone. Anybody that's looking to get paid this upcoming offense, they're probably gone. So like New Orleans is probably just going to be, like you said, a UFL team or CFL team at best.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
Carolina is, like you say, it is going to sound cliche, but they're going to have a stretch where, they can, like I said, they can play great football, 26, 27 points a game in that stretch and go 2-3 still.
right.
And it won't look like it when their record is 5-8 after 13 games, but it's like, yo, these 8 losses, we scored like 24 points in all these games.
Right.
It's just that we played Buffalo, we played the Jets with Justin Fields and he's rolling, whatever the case may be. So yeah. It can be tough.
So I got a phone call the other day. And this guy told me that he was about to retire. Like, I don't feel like doing this no more. And I said, why are you going to retire, man? You got so much left in you. And then the honey badger said to me, you look at the rest of this roster. So Marshawn Lattimore is already gone. You know what I mean? Chris Olave has the Tua problem where he just gets concussions, and he was
I saw his concussion reel.
Those are scary.
Bad. It's not even like some guys get concussions. Like Chad Johnson talked about, he tried to block Ray Lewis, and it was like a bump, and it was like, oh, this is off.
Yeah.
Olave caught a pass and just got tackled.
Yeah, sometimes you might be.
He got tackled by his hands. It was like boom, and his head.
Sometimes you might be playing on turf. You get tackled, and then the momentum, your head just bounces. No, Olave be on that smoky. You got knocked the fuck out.
He'll readjust the ball, and he's catching it 2 hands over his head, falling backwards, and just lands on his head. And it's like, God damn.
And then Rashid got hurt. Their speedster, he got hurt last year. And you know who they brought in, Mr. Lod? You know who they brought back? They brought in Brandon Cooks. You know what I'm saying? So when you got the hurt receiver room, what you do? You go get another hurt receiver. Like, one of y'all got to play, right? So, so Tyler Shuck. I feel bad for that kid sometimes because a lot of the reason that he got or he has been receiving some of the criticism that he's getting is because people were like, how you take that dude over Shedeur? So it wasn't even his fault. Like, first of all,
the throw in the combine didn't help either.
That
throw was the footwork was awful. The way he let it go, thinking it was money.
Right.
It was a slant route against air, and you missed by 5 yards.
Like Nick Young. It was that Nick Young gift where he shoot the shot and turn around.
Yo, he was like, and I was like, dog, that's not even close.
Yeah. So the good news for him is that he's got an offensive head coach, Kellen Moore, but the bad news is first time head coach. He played at Louisville last year under Coach Brom. So I think that made him look better than he actually is. He started at Texas Tech, or he started at Oregon. Then he went to Texas Tech, got hurt a lot in college. The good news is his injuries were more breaks than they were like, oh, hey, there's an Achilles, or hey, there's an ACL. He broke the same collarbone twice. And then he broke his leg the other time, the fibula. So these aren't necessarily injuries that are going to hamper him going forward.
These are all reasons why you don't draft a 26-year-old guy.
This is why you don't do it.
New Orleans,
especially where you
talk about teams that are not serious franchises.
Yeah.
New Orleans is one of them.
And this is why you don't draft him where you took him.
You're better off picking an offensive lineman in the second round that you can use next year when you try to draft Arch.
Kamara still hasn't ran.
You're wasting a quarterback spot.
Kamara still hasn't ran for 1,000 yards.
Which is strange.
But the Saints did make 2 good secondary pickups this offseason. They went and got Justin Reed. And then you ready for this? They went and got Layton, Utah's own Julian Blackmon.
Zach Wilson's cousin.
Shout out to Utah. Go Utes. But yeah, so they brought Chase Young back. So you would like to think that maybe the defense is decent at least. Like, not good.
You're going to bet the under. I'm going to bet the under in a parlay for all the New Orleans points.
No, I'm going to
do it right now.
I'm going to try to go find the odds for them to go winless.
Somebody's going to do something. It's the NFL. It's going to be a game in the rain where the quarterback of the opposing team. Let me see. All right. So if we look at this schedule, you got at Seattle, maybe it rains. At Buffalo, at Chicago, at LA. No, that's not going. The weather won't affect that game. You scroll down to the bottom. At Miami is going to be nice and warm. Cam Ward probably is going to be a better quarterback than anything they got on the wall, and so I think he'll probably be good. At Atlanta's a dome. At Tampa Bay is warm. Yeah, they don't even have the weather as something that's going to help them, because first of all, they play all their games in the dome,
right?
And every team that they play in cold weather, unless it's cold as hell in Chicago, October 19th,
it's the Windy City,
or it rains in Carolina, November 9th. Other than that, they don't have a weather assist that's going to help them out. Because, we talk about that with Buffalo all the time, where it's like, if Miami had to go play Buffalo the second game in late November, you could probably bank on Buffalo winning that game. But if Miami got Buffalo in Miami September 18th, right, you're like, okay, you're good to go.
That was Tom Brady was like that. They would always lose down in Miami, and then they would get Miami back in Foxborough.
Yeah. So, New Orleans is in a tough spot because they're going to be so bad, and we already know it was preventable. Like, we know you could have made different moves to not be as bad as you're going to be next year. Like, they could have legit got Shedeur Sanders. Maybe not in the second round, but they could have gotten some more talent, and he still would have been there in the third or fourth round. Obviously, he went in the fifth round, but it was like, you could have gotten a better quarterback than what you currently have in the room. Those guys aren't keepers.
Uh-huh.
The guy you took was not better. He wasn't better than Dylan Gabriel. He wasn't better than Jalen Milroe. So he wasn't better than a lot of the guys, not just Shedeur. He wasn't better than a lot of the guys he went ahead of.
Right.
He was substantially not as good as those guys. Like, it's a substantial gap from what he provided on the college football field and what they provided. So you took him anyway. So we're going to watch every one of these games next year. And the only team that got shut out,
Spencer Rattler might be the starter.
And the only shutout, I think the first team to get shut out last year was pretty late in the year, was Green Bay shut out New Orleans on Monday night. And it didn't even look like they were going to be able to move the ball.
Right.
I think they got a couple of pass interference calls, some holding calls, and like maybe one or two blown coverages. But it's like, they didn't even look like a viable NFL product. And we knew that last year, and they didn't do anything to alter that going into this year. So if they go 0-17, it wouldn't surprise me, because they haven't done anything to avoid going 0-17.
So check it. I got two semi-rhetorical questions for you.
All right.
It's the same question, but just about two different teams. If New Orleans wins week 1, did Gannon just get himself fired?
Yeah, because it would be it'd be 6-0.
And then,
like, how does New Orleans score points? Like, you're
Kamara.
So him just running the ball, he's the one guy that
Chuba Hubbard. We just talked about Chuba Hubbard. He was 8th in the league in rushing, and look how bad Carolina's pass offense was.
But what I'm saying is that if you're Arizona and you're New Orleans coming out for their 4th drive,
okay,
who else on that team contributed offensively besides Alvin Kamara? Nobody. So, like, you shouldn't even every one of their drives should be a 3-and-out unless it's a defensive holding call.
So,
but every single one of them sitting with a punt.
So I already know that you already said that this guy is going to get fired, but does Brian Daboll get fired week 5 Like, does he get the "you're not coming back to New York" special if they lose that game?
New Orleans? I'd say yes, but like I said, until I see what Spencer Rattler has been in the lab doing to make him to I'm trying to get did he improve enough to make up for the fact that the New Orleans organization in itself did not actively try to improve the team?
Right.
Did he get, did he lose some weight to become a little more nimble? Did he work on his arm strength? Did he get with multiple training coaches? Did he fly down the wide receivers and build some rapport?
You got a former quarterback as the head coach.
But did he personally do anything to make himself a force multiplier for this team? Because as we look at it, we can't see what New Orleans did. You could look at the Giants. We could look at the Giants and say, Abdul Carter, Scatterboo, getting Russell Wilson in there, getting another wide receiver in there. We can say, hey, we think these things could work if we can get elevated performance from Thibodeau and maintain the all-pro level performance from Dexter Lawrence. You can make some things happen with the Giants. Jackson Dart, you bring him along. You can, as a Giants fan or organization, you can look and say, you know what? If these pieces don't work out, it doesn't work out. Right. But they put pieces in place to say, this person is going to be able to do this for us for the next 5 to 7 years, however long that relationship lasts professionally. I don't think New Orleans did that at all. I don't know what player they brought in, starting with the quarterback, especially considering how badly your quarterback play was last year and previous years, the debacle that you had to deal with Derek Carr. Is like, what did you do to address that? Because that was your most glaring issue. And I think they did such a poor job of that. I can't imagine anything else. I can see a lot of guys not playing because of hamstrings. Just not risking their body between you said the trade deadline is after the Los Angeles game.
Yes.
So that week of the Carolina game.
Yeah, that Tuesday.
So I see a lot of guys week 5 through 9 turf toe.
Oh, I got tennis elbow.
I got reader's fingers. I can't flip the pages. It's gonna be new shit that they're gonna come up with because it's like, listen, get me up out of here.
Hey, it's going to be like, you ever play 2K and they be coming up with those reasons that the players can't play?
Yeah.
Like, yo, slipped on ice, or like got stung by bee.
Yo, my dog bit me.
You know what I'm saying? Like washing dishes, something like
dude's
that.
Gonna be rubbing peanut butter on their kneecap so the dog can get a little bite. Like, man, a dog bit me on my knee.
Yeah.
So I can't play this week.
All right. So to put the bow on it, I got Tampa 10-7. I got Atlanta 9-8. I got Carolina at 6-11. I'm hoping for 7, but I'm gonna go with 6-11. And it's hard to pick a team to go 0-17. I really want to pick the Saints to go 0-17. You know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm picking the Saints to go 0-17. I was gonna give them 2-15, but I'm gonna go 0-17.
I got Tampa Bay 9-8, Carolina just because that stretch 7-10. New Orleans 1-16. Somebody's got to slip up. Somebody's got to fumble the field goal attempt and get run back for a touchdown, and they win the game 6-0 or some nonsense or I mean, it's like, something ridiculous, something ridiculous like that. Atlanta, I'm a homer, I'm not going front, but I got 10-7 because I think offensively we'll be able to squeeze out a couple of games.
Okay,
just eke out just the Bijan in space. It's gonna break through for a couple of games, and it's gonna be, like I said, it's gonna be an up and down. But it's like I think the 2 wins off of Carolina guaranteed. We split with Tampa Bay, and so that's 4 wins right there. I just feel like the team should be able to figure it out. And with teams being sellers at the trade down, because there's a lot of teams that are in this boat where they're going to be moving off of players because it's like I said, it's going to be a few bad teams in the league.
Did Philly go 13-4 last year? Was it, or was it 14-3?
I want to say 14-3 because
I'm going to make a point here, but
because Detroit went 15-2 and Minnesota went 14-3, and Philly got the 2 seed because they couldn't they couldn't take the number 1 seed from Detroit.
And it went 14-3. So what I was going to say was, it's crazy because
that's what it's in a hurry up steady.
Saquon dropped that ball.
Saquon dropped the ball, and it's like he's probably one of the most you can like if you called that 4 from my own
now world famous.
You gotta get rid of the schedule, man. It's sad. I feel bad for my boy Germany. He's a big Saints fan. I will rub it in his face every week, though. Don't get it twisted.
Don't get it twisted. Yeah,
I'll fly to his house.
Hey, it'll be so Falcon to lose a game to the Saints too.
Oh my God.
Yes, but he is cool, calm, and collected. Unless that happens, he is Mr. Logical.
Kicking his door.
I am 25. We love you. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things. Make sure you got a liquid death while you're doing it. Cherry, obituary, blueberry, buzzsaw is the way to go. Peace.